لا إله إلا الله.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I would like to welcome all of our new students as well as our continuing students for this orientation session for this new semester. Alhamdulillah, it is our normal practice at the beginning of every semester to welcome the new students and give them some basic advice and encouragement in order for them to maximize the benefit from their study. As the Chancellor of the university, who set up this whole program for your benefit, I would like to stress a few important points. One among those points is the concept of Ihsan, that we try to do things to the best way possible. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as the Prophet ﷺ had quoted, loves that we do things to the best that we can. Inna Allah yuhibbu min ahadikum, as the Prophet ﷺ said, Allah loves from each and every one of you, إِذَا عَمِلَ عَمَلًا, if you do any deed, and yutqina, that you do it to the best of your ability. So, coming into this course, whichever course you've chosen, of the 7 or 8 different options we have, as well as our certificate programs and our associate degrees, you have a variety of choices and you can shift around, you can shift out of one stream into another stream. The flexibility is there. But the end point is that you should apply yourself firmly, seriously, with the right intention. The intention being to gain knowledge which would allow you to serve the ummah. And in doing that, serving the ummah for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala becomes for you ibadah. It becomes for you ibadah or worship of Allah. So you should approach your studies as worship. In the same way, when you worship, there are conditions that must be fulfilled. And there are things that may be done which can cancel the validity of your worship. So you have to be conscious and aware of all of those factors. You should enter this program seriously. Not doing your tests, your modules, your revision at the last minute. That's what you did in high school, and that's what everybody else was doing. You shouldn't have, but more than likely that's what you did. The point is now you're entering into the tertiary level of education. You may be in Islamic studies, and that's one thing that you're encouraged to take. Not necessarily as a major, but even in your other areas like Islamic banking and finance or information technology, etc., you will have to also take some Islamic subjects. The point here is that we have to look at all of our subjects as important. Not just the subjects you may be focusing on, which is your major, psychology for example. You also should consider all of the additional courses that you're asked to take, and to do them to the best of your ability. So this principle of ihsan, perfection, itqan, doing things as perfectly as possible. This should be a guiding light for yourself in the course of your next 4 years of study, or 3, or 2, or 1. Commitment should be there. Also, due to the nature of online study, the dropout rate is high. A lot of people will not make it. 40%, 30% will drop out. In some countries, in some cases, it might be as much as 60% will drop out. So that is true of conventional universities. As much as 40% will drop out anyway. So online, sometimes this is increased, not just around the same, but doubled sometimes, or less. The point is what? That people drop out for reasons. And you need to be aware of the reasons why you shouldn't drop out. You may find some difficulties. People find difficulties studying online. They're not familiar with it. They're not used to studying on their own. And they try to get help. They can't find help immediately, or the help is not sufficient, and they drop out, frustrated. You have to know that you shouldn't give up. If you are sincere in your commitment in the first place, then you have to be patient, because gaining knowledge is not something that is going to come on a silver spoon, in a silver platter. You're going to have to work for it. And shaitan, the satanic forces, will be busy trying to dissuade you, discourage you, dishearten you, so that you will drop out. And if you do, they have succeeded. So my advice to you is to hang in there at any cost. Even if it means giving some subjects up, okay, you can't handle it, you've taken on too much for yourself, you weren't prepared for it, whatever, you didn't give yourself enough time, and you're a slow starter, you didn't start off right away in the beginning of the semester, so you lost the first month, for example, and that can make things very difficult for you. But the point is that better you fail 1 or 2 and get through the remaining 4 than just give up totally. Something is better than nothing. So beware of the dropout syndrome, which is extremely high in online study. Thirdly, my advice is also to take what you can handle. Yes, if you take 12 courses per semester, you can finish your degree in 2 years. That sounds wonderful. Only 2 years. Yes, 2 years is enough. But very few people can handle 12 subjects. That's reality. So don't take on or bite off more than you can chew. Take your basic 6 first semester, see how you go with that 6. You might find 6 was too much for you. You need to go down to 4 next semester. Or you find that 6 was doable, maybe you can add to it 2 more or 3 more. If you can add 3 to make it 9 per semester, you can finish your degree in 3 years. Your 4-year degree course you can do in 3 years. But it's better for you to increase gradually after starting from the norm, the standard amount, rather than jumping in the deep end, 12 subjects, and you fail half of them. No point. So my advice is, take what you can handle. لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. Allah does not burden anyone more than they can handle. So why should you burden yourself more than you can handle? Huh? You can't complain to Allah because you're the one that put yourself in that situation. So better to start with what is doable and then move on to increase or decrease. You have to look at your time, because really it's going to be all about time management. That's going to be the key. If you can manage your time properly, then believe me, you will be able to do well. Do your 6 courses and do them well if you can manage your time. But you have to be realistic. Set a schedule for yourself. Put it on the wall. You know you have 30 modules per subject, right? And to the midterm, you have to do 15 of them. You have 2.5 months to do the 15 modules from each course. If you're taking 6 courses, that's 90 modules. You have 90 modules to cover in 2.5 weeks. 2.5 weeks, if you're studying 5 days a week instead of 7, you're studying 5 days, you give yourself that 2-day weekend. If you're studying 5 days a week, then you are going to need 90 days of study. 90 days. If you're studying for 2.5 months at 5 days per week, that will work out to 50 days. 50 days. In those 50 days, you have to complete the 15 modules. And if you're doing 6 classes, 6 courses, then that works out to 90 hours. Each module is equal to an hour. So you have 90 hours you have to cover in 50 days. So that works out to be less than 2 modules per day. 2 modules per day. So if you have 2 modules per day, then those modules, you have to understand, a module will consist of a 1-hour lecture that you should watch. The delivery of the teacher, the professor, 1 hour. Technically speaking, while watching that 1 hour, you should pause the recording and make notes. So that should really take you more than an hour. Could take you as much as an hour and a half. You also have to read the text for that particular class. That may take you half an hour. But while reading the text, you should also be making notes, and adding to the notes you have done from the lesson that you listened to. Or it could be the other way around. Some people start off with the notes first. What are the pages from the textbook or recommended references that you should read for this particular module? You may also have the notes of your fellow students who took the course last semester, the semester before, and so and so. They've put up their notes. So you may be able to print out those notes, keep them beside you, and you create your own final summary for that module. So that process may take you as much as 2 hours to do one module thoroughly. If you're just thinking that the module is doing the lecture, just listen to the lecture, then that's only 1 hour. But reality is that it's more than that. So you can expect 2 hours, because even to do the module test, which is a 5-minute test, you're going to allow yourself 10 minutes. Could be as much as 15 minutes. So it could be as much as 2 hours per module, in which case you need 4 hours per day, right? You need to set aside 4 hours per day. That's if you are doing, in-depth study, making sure you've covered your material properly. And that's the way to do it, really. But that's 5 days a week. If you made it 6 days a week, then your time could be distributed to 2 hours a day, as opposed to 4 hours a day or 3 hours a day. So it's going to be in that range, between 2 and 4 hours a day you need to set aside. So having understood what is required of you, then you prepare your schedule accordingly, in the evening, in the morning, depending on whether you are a full-time student. You're not doing anything else, that's all you have. Then give it the full 4 hours or more each day. You put in on your 2 modules and do them thoroughly. Because when you make really good notes, then when the time comes for revision before your midterm, you just can depend on your notes and you've understood everything. But when you rush through, you didn't make good notes, etc., when the midterm comes, it's as if you have to relearn that module. So be careful. The time that you save in shortening your preparation, you will end up having to spend more time when you prepare for your final exams, and it will be much more difficult for you to understand what you are preparing. So give yourself that time. If you're a full-time student, why not? That's what you would have done at university anyway. Don't think that because this is online, so I really don't need to do it the way I would have done. No, do it the same way. If you are instead a part-time student, you're taking half the load, then obviously it's going to be less for you. What we talked about, 2 to 4 hours, may just be 1 hour to 2 hours in a day. And if you're doing it only in your spare time, then you have to be even more careful. Because if you're a working professional, for example, how much spare time do you have? You've got a family, you've got other commitments, etc. So how much time can you give at night? You can only give 2 hours. Then you have to try to fit everything here in 2 hours. Maybe you'll need 6 days a week. Or maybe on the weekend you give it extra time. Instead of just 2 hours on Saturday, the day off, you need to put in 4 hours. Because you have to know that this is serious. This is a serious course of study. One of the biggest mistakes students make is they think, oh, online, that's so easy, it's just multiple choice questions. We really don't have to prepare. It's easy to get through. No. Many people fail. That's the reality. It's not that it's easy at all. It's just as hard, if not harder, than classes in a conventional university. It's much more challenging. So don't be fooled into thinking that this is just Mickey Mouse, a walk in the park. Easy. It's not. It's serious study. What makes it special is that whatever you are learning it from an Islamic perspective. That's what makes it special. Alhamdulillah, you can't get this anywhere else. This is one of the unique features of the programs here in Islamic Online University, those which are not specifically Islamic, modern subjects, some people call them secular subjects. We teach them all from an Islamic perspective. Otherwise, there was no need for us to start programs in education and in psychology, etc., because they already exist. Do we need to reinvent the wheel? No. But what we do need to do is to make a difference. To give that knowledge from an Islamic perspective so that this next generation that goes through these courses will themselves have a changed view, another view on their subjects, and be able to implement it in our communities globally in such a way as to change the nation through education. That is the goal of the Islamic Online University. So, my fellow students and new teachers or teacher assistants, lecturer assistants, I'd like to welcome you to this new semester, and I pray that Allah blesses your efforts with success in both this life and the next. I ask you to keep in mind your commitment. At the same time, hang in there, don't give up when the trials come, and take what you can handle. Take as much as you can handle. And then make sure that your commitment is to utilize this knowledge to benefit the ummah. To benefit the ummah, and in doing so, you will be engaged in ibadah. To worship Allah while working for your living and working in service to your community. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.